Thank you for tuning in to Not Just Girl Talk with Tiffany and Ashanti. Make sure you got a beverage in your hand. Sit back, relax, and engage with us. What's up, Tiff? How you doing, girl? What's been going on? How you feeling?
Girl, I'm doing pretty good. I'm your host, Tiffany.
And I am your host, Ashanti, and welcome to Not Just Girl Talk. So, let's see. Weekend. What was your weekend like?
Girl, it was pretty cool. My daughter made it to dance, of course, this weekend. I'll be glad.
Oh, she made it.
Yeah, she did. She made sure to get ready on time. Her dad actually took her though. So that may be a difference on how she gets ready, With me,
they always do right for the dance.
But girl, I really will be excited. Her recital is June 19th. So we are counting down. So to be a little bit over.
So your countdown is not to the performance, it's to for it to be over.
Yeah, because although, she's done dance for 2 years, I think she's sometimes she kind of fights, like she don't want to go. But she likes the recital part, putting on the makeup and all of that. But I think she really needs to be in gymnastics, seriously. She does.
Oh.
Yeah. Other than that, nothing, just kind of relaxed. Of course, I always try to clean up what we can. As they mess up, we try to keep it straightened up at least enough. I actually did a little bit of catching up on some shows. I don't know if you watch. Have you ever seen Bigger on BT?
No.
It's on BT Plus. It's season 2 just came out. Girl, it's pretty good. You gotta watch it.
Bigger. Okay, I'm gonna have to watch it. I've never seen it. Okay. Well, it sounds like you had a relaxful, kind of chill, but you did something to do weekend. Okay. So I'm kind of
big girl.
I've been having shopping fever. I said it last time, like I was shopping, and it's still upon me. And I'm not, a big shopper, but I did go back and do a little shopping. I took the kids out to eat. We haven't been out to eat. I can't even say when. And we had a good time. My kids are so funny. Like, they hilarious. No, but we had a good time. So, also, so Fat, he hurt himself in football, so he is on crutches now. We got to go get the MRI next week to check out his foot. So took him to the emergency room, and we went this week, but like last week or not. But he broke his emergency room. Was like, oh, he's fine. He said his ankle was hurt. So went to the ortho specialist. Come to find out his foot is actually broken, and he's in the cast. Now we got to go get an MRI to make sure it's okay. And then they think he tore his plantar fasciitis in the bottom of his foot. So if he did that, we may have to have surgery. So that's the whole thing with him on crutches, helping him get around, giving him just the catering that I haven't had to do.
Mom's job is never finished.
I know. So that's kind of, that's the thing that's kind of going. But when we went out to eat, it kind of lightened up, the kind of tenseness and everything. And I told man, I was like, well, you seem like you would want to study abroad. And because he likes, being out of stuff. I was like, he was like, what, is that animals? And I was like, no. And so I didn't tell him what it was. So Elijah, he said something. I don't know what he said, but he was wrong. And then Jay was like, well, I don't know. And so Fed was like, yeah, women abroad. He was like, Mom, ain't abroad a female? I'm like,
well, it's a disrespectful term for a female.
He was like, abroad. I was laughing so hard I couldn't even get it out. So I was like, they was like, no, that ain't me. He was like, Mom, ain't abroad a female? I was like, in your terminology that you're using it, yes, it is considered abroad can be a female. But I'm talking about studying abroad in other countries, learning other cultures. And they was like, oh, okay. And this is a normal conversation in my household. Like, my kids are hilarious. So going out to eat was educational and entertaining.
Yes.
Somebody, a female. What? Why is he studying?
And feel confident about it, though.
Oh, he was dead serious. Oh, he thought he was like, oh, he was for real.
Oh, just wrong content. Okay.
So that's pretty much what's going on with me for the weekend and upcoming weeks. So I had a good time. I got my babies, and you can't beat that.
No.
So,
well, I mean, it sounds like we've been chilling and relaxing and having fun, trying to get back to the new normal. But let's get into the show. So we want to thank everyone that has been listening to Not Just Girl Talk. Shout out to Paris, still loyal. We even got Germany and UK is pretty up there. Their numbers are about the same. And Ohio, still honorable mention. From Ohio, Hugh, Ohio, and it's another one. What was the other part of Ohio? Reach out to us because we want to know who y'all are. We appreciate the support. But please make sure you guys subscribe, download, and like us on all of our platforms. We are available on YouTube if you want to see us at Not Just Girl Talk Podcast. And again, make sure you hit the little bell and subscribe, download, like, share. And then we're available on IG at NotJustGirl_Talk. Again, that's IG at NotJustGirl_Talk. And our Facebook page is Not Just Girl Talk with Tiffany and Ashanti. And lastly, we're entering the Twitter world at Not Just Girl T. So at Not Just Girl T on Twitter.
Yes, so I want to thank you all as well for tuning in and listening to us. We also gained a lot of new YouTube subscribers. So thank y'all for joining. We got a goal we're trying to reach. We really want to get to 1,000 subscribers. So comment, share our content, all of that great stuff, y'all. So we definitely thanking you all for joining in and just being supportive of us. So what's kind of been going on? Moving into our grown folks talk segment, what's going on in the world? What's going on, girl?
So yeah, you guys know we record every 2 weeks, and usually most time we're kind of light, but by the time you guys have seen it, it may be old news to you guys, but we, it has to be mentioned and honorable because we are super excited, or at least me, a sigh of relief, if you will. Derek Chauvin was found guilty on all 3 charges, and he is the guy that knelt 9.5 minutes on George Floyd's neck. In our community, we knew that that's murder. Everybody's seen it across the world. It was just a relief to see that. I feel like for the first time that our community was heard, and
right,
they agreed like that it was murder.
And our marches weren't in vain. Speaking of coming together as a unit, as a culture, to know that this has to end, because I have three sons, 3 black young men. My sons are black, so that to see the justice come out of this was definitely, I didn't really know how to describe it, because it was almost numbing, because it was like it has to come to this, because it's never a good thing to lose a life. He still lost his life. There's justice on the back end, but there had to be a life lost for no reason. So it was a good thing to see that there is something being done. Just even if this is one glimmer of hope that something is changing will take that. All it takes is a small thing for something to be big, and for something such small as this, justice, and for him to be found guilty on all 3 charges, is a great feeling to have. It was a good feeling, and it was also sad. It was good, but it was sad. I don't know how to explain it, but this is kind of how my emotions were about it.
It's sad because, I mean, statistics don't lie. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't good police officers. However, I will say there's a discrepancy on if a Black person is pulled over by the police, of it going the wrong direction quickly than versus our counterparts. And this is, although this was a glimmer of hope, and it's great that he got justice, and I'm thankful for that. However, I don't want us to lose sight on, we still need to be heard and keep doing what we're doing to make sure demonstrations or whatever, because what happens is during the trial, Dwayne, Dwayne Wright, Dwayne Wright, during the trial of George Floyd, was murdered by a police officer. Now, granted, the situation was a 26-year-old veteran mistook a gun for a taser. So, that kind of, so now that's that, so I want it to be that every time I turn on the TV, I'm not hearing of another Black person dying.
Right.
Another Black person's death. So.
I agree. Yeah, this is heavy. It is kind of heavy. So also in the news as well, DMX, they had his kind of like memorial for him. And when I tell you, those Rough Riders came through. I was watching it on IG, and those motorcycles, 4-wheelers, they represented for DMX. I was happy to pretty much kind of capture some of those moments that were being publicized for us to see. And it was, okay, so you hear that right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not raggedy neighbors, but it's okay. So DMX, sorry, but DMX, he was, that the memorial was good. It was good.
Yes, DMX, it was sad, but I'm glad they sent him out the correct way,
Yeah, they did that. Yeah. They did that. I ain't gonna lie. It was good to see. And I was like, wow, to be here and do something that you love to do, and you leave your legacy, you leave a print on the world, people, man, that's like, it's so amazing to me. And to be honored in such a way, it was good. It was really good to see that. It was dope.
All right.
So first, we want to thank you for coming on our show today, and welcome to Not Just Girl Talk. So we want to introduce a very special guest, a friend and fellow alumni from MTSU. He's been in the financial industry for over 17 years, and he has several accolades under his belt, including sitting on the board of directors for Empowerment Inc., which is a nonprofit for preparing high school students for college life. And most recently, in 2004, he's opened up his own firm, financial firm, Northwestern Mutual. So, without further ado, welcome, Merriweather.
Thank you. I appreciate you all having me. It is an honor.
Well, we thank you so much for coming on and joining us on Not Just Girl Talk. And we're going to jump on into this topic of discussion today. So, with you being in the financial world and being an African-American man, we want to...
Beverage of the day.
Okay. We can rewind. Go back.
The good thing about editing.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep it. Anyway.
We're different personalities.
We are. I like to keep the stuff in. Let's keep it raw and real. Okay, people like stuff like this. Anyway, running it back. So we do have our beverage of the day, and my beverage that I am currently drinking is green tea. I'm taking it light. I'm drinking green tea. So what you got, Eric? What you drinking?
Yeah, so today I'm sipping on a little peach crown. Yeah, neat.
Oh,
you got the peach. That's hard to find.
Yeah, it is. But you know, we keep some on deck. You know, gotta keep fly.
The apple easier. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Eric, you don't know much. We've been trying to go on this weight loss.
What you drinking? Why you talking about weight loss? No, exactly. Exactly. She's trying to.
I have said that this weight loss journey, I was not going to really drink, but I've been doing good with my water intake. I've been doing better. However, just for the show purposes, I am sipping on a little Prosecco. So very light, refreshing. And this will be it. I'm still gonna be beach body ready. But yeah. So
but your glass was filled almost to the brim. So
I didn't fill it up. Very
it is pretty full.
This is my husband.
I gotta make it through the full show with that. Like, man, I was thinking the same thing. My goodness.
Yeah, listen. He be trying to set me up.
He is. He is. Yeah, good evening.
I said that glass is mighty full. Okay.
I'm a sip.
Okay, take it easy. We gotta get through the show. Okay. Oh my goodness. So moving into our topic of discussion, which is definitely surrounding finance today, as we have Eric here, professional in finance. We want to dive in and talk about growing up, what you kind of were exposed to financially, different financial stereotypes, you will, around the African American community. So let our listeners know pretty much how you got started, and then also segue into pretty much what you experienced growing up from a financial, upbringing as well.
Okay. Yeah. I think let me just start off by saying it's amazing. I often wonder how I got where I am today and how I'm even doing what I am today. I have very surreal moments throughout days, very regularly. So it's kind of like an out of body experience. So just kind of starting there because I'm originally from Memphis 10.
All of us.
Yeah, Memphis 10, Black Haven representing all day, every day.
Oh, you went to Haven? What school you went to?
So I went to Overton for high school. But I went to Lanier for junior high. I went to Garden View for elementary, right in the Haven. Yeah.
I went to Garden View.
Did you?
Okay. I did, but I bounced around. But I lived in Whitehaven. Okay. Right there by John P. Freeman. Bellamy's, the corner store, right there, the neighborhood behind. Yeah, that's where I grew up.
Little League football. We played at John P. Freeman Stadium. I played for the Whitehaven Browns back in.
I was a cheerleader for the Whitehaven Cowboys.
Okay.
I'm sure we beat y'all. I know. I'm sure we beat y'all. Okay, go ahead. We got into a whole Memphis rant.
Yeah. But anyway. Okay, so I was on for Hillcrest. That's where I was supposed to go. I was on for Hillcrest. Ended up going to Overton. But my family, you didn't talk about money. You know what I'm saying? My mom's, you didn't really discuss money. My mom and dad divorced early on when I was 5, 6, and so went through a period where my mom was working 2, 3 jobs, just grinding, making ends meet, and half of the family was on food stamp, you know what I'm saying, so I kind of got to see that side of finances, and it was really a thing to where nobody really had a lot of money. You didn't talk about money. We didn't really take vacations outside of family reunions, and so I think I grew up probably how the average, maybe upper lower to lower middle class, Black family grew up. But for me, I have, or had, should I say, a gift, and I always just got money. Like saving naturally made sense to me, and I just naturally grasped a lot of the financial concepts, ironically enough. And so I moved out of Memphis to attend MTSU, and it was there where I was working at Kroger, and that's where I got my start. Was bagger at Kroger, just kind of worked my way up over the years. And I got tired. I never forget. It was Bill Bellamy came to MTSU. I don't know if you remember that tip. It was concert. Bill Bellamy came to MTSU, and I had to work that night, and I missed it. And so I said, I'm never gonna miss another concert, never miss another event. And so I knew if I got a job at the bank, I would be out by 6 every day, right? Because I was working at Kroger Coles in the office, and so that's how I got into banking. And I figured if I can, count the money in the register at Kroger, like banking as a cashier teller, I can do that certainly. And so that basically started my journey in the financial industry, and it was a blessing because I got to see for the first time up close and personal, like what people with money did, what they looked like, how they managed their money. You know what I'm saying? And so that was a tremendous blessing because that's how I got insight into a world that I never even knew really existed outside of TV.
Oh, so I know it was kind of like that for me growing up financially.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about money younger. In my adult area now, we more so discuss money. But growing up, it was kind of a taboo thing. Like, you don't ask how much you make, you don't ask how much stuff costs, you don't ask certain questions. You're the child, I'm the parent. Now, and it's just that. But as I got older, my mom, she really taught us. I had my kids. My oldest. I was 20 when I had him. So at that point, I didn't really wasn't making no money. And I was taught how. Like my mama, she taught me how to survive.
That's what I was gonna say.
In this space. So yeah, she how to survive. So I know I can make something happen. I can, come over here to do this, to make this today. So if somebody say, rob you to PayPal, you know how to go around the corner, bring it back again, and make it happen 2 times. Okay, so that's how I was taught to do. And she also taught us as we got older, pretty much about, I guess, handling money, how to pay your bills and things like that. Not to be late, just the basic concepts of money. But when it came to budgeting, when it came to saving, how to do those things, now it's so funny because my mom was just talking about kind of budgeting, and she called me, was like, hey, okay, so tell me how to do this again, or you tell me what you think about that. So it's funny how, it kind of goes back around. But I do remember coming in younger, just a new parent trying to learn life. What's budget? What's that? Tiffany Arion used to be like, girl, you budget. I was like, girl, white folks stuff. I'm just gonna tell you what I was thinking.
But the same with me. Like, we did not talk about money. But I do remember that I had stuff and all of this, but it wasn't until I got a little bit older. I'm like, I don't need all of this stuff. I don't need the latest name brand and all of this. This ain't gonna make no difference. So, but I do think that I found a better concept of money because of my husband. So just like you said, you always had a knack for saving. My husband is first off, he's the balance of me because I'm the free spirit, as Dave Ramsey would say, and he's the nerd. Like he kind of like, made me look at money differently. And we knew once we decided to do life together, collectively, we're going to budget, save money. Now, we're not perfect, but we've got a concept of it and know that it's important. And especially now that we got kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So right now, financial. So for kids, in generational wealth, kind of what area, because you're helping in that space for young people to build finances. So how are you doing it? What is something that you're doing to allow them to have a different, as we've all spoke collectively, a different start than what you had. So kind of what does that look like?
Yeah, so I tell people what I do is intergenerational wealth planning, right? You hear a lot about, generational wealth, creating generational wealth, but if you think about intergenerational wealth, that's from generation to generation, right? Spanning multiple generations. And you hear about, a good man or woman leaving an inheritance to their children's children. The first thing that typically comes to mind is money, right? Leaving a bunch of money. But where it all starts, so where wealth starts is in your mind, right? Our mindset. That's typically what differentiates anyone that's very wealthy from those that are not. And I often think about Jay-Z, right? Jay-Z from the projects, right? He's now a billionaire, right? And so the thing that differentiated him from many others was his mindset. And one of the things that you see, and again, don't get to some of the specific tactical type of things, but I really want to drive home how important mindset is, right? So for most of us, we were taught simply to survive, right? And so even for myself, I've been in the industry now for 17 years roughly, but I just started to have that shift in the last, say, like 5 years to go from surviving to thriving, right? So we often put a lid on ourselves and on our thought process and on our mind. And so where I would start, typically with kids and even my kids, like there are no limitations, right? Like sky is not even the limit. There are no limits, right? And even from the standpoint of a higher power, God, spirituality, right? There are no limits, right? And so I think it first and foremost starts there, knowing that anything is possible, and knowing that, and even for me, like I don't think I knew anyone growing up that made six figures, right? That was like so far off. But knowing that you can make $1 million a year, you can make $2 million a year, right? If you don't ever believe that you will, and that goes with anything. If you don't believe it, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to achieve whatever it is, right? Because you've already placed that limit on yourself. And our thoughts lead to our actions, which produce our outcomes, right? And so and y'all can just stop me at any point in time or any specific questions, but I'm just going to kind of go through here. So just to make sure I understand the question past that. So first, mindset. What specific things can you do for children to start them off on a kind of better path, so to speak, than like you have? Is that so for all of us, and I have 2 daughters, we typically
girl dad.
Girl dad, yeah, 2, 10 and 8 are the ages. Awesome. And so you typically want your children to go on and do better than you. And so as it relates to intergenerational wealth, the first step and foundation in that, right, and we often overlook or don't think about as deeply, is life insurance, right? For one, a lot of people that I work with now, especially younger people that come in, often now it's been due to unfortunate circumstances with parents or loved ones, right? And they come in with checks anywhere from $100,000 to 500. The largest we've seen recently has been $1 million, right? So I often ask people, if something happens to you today, what is your worth? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you going to leave? And so if you look at your bank accounts, your investment accounts, et cetera, you could not have a dime to your name. But if you have a life insurance policy that's $500,000, $1 million, and you pass, that goes to your kids and your families 100% tax free. Uncle Sam has no part or no hand in it. And so I think first, you gotta have that, right? Just as a foundation, and having peace of mind and knowing if something happens to me, my family, my kids are set, right?
And that's what Tiffany was.
I was gonna say. So we have life insurance, but we thought that was something you did, and again, Arian, but thought that was what you should do when you got married. So 6 months into marriage, we have life insurance, but it's like a 25-year term policy. With that though, since then, and I don't know if you know my story, I have multiple sclerosis, so I've gotten a chronic illness. Now I'm locked into this term policy, But I pretty much uninsurable after that goes. So what suggestions for us? We just are now just grinding, making sure we save. My husband believes deeply in 401k. Yeah, so I'll leave that. But so what suggestions would you have for someone like me?
Okay, yeah, I run into that quite a bit, and so let me just start by saying, part of my problem, right, or issue is a gift and a curse. Is I'm always thinking about best case and worst case scenario. So I always tell my clients that no matter who you are, what your situation is starting out, because the benefit of having an advisor, so to speak, or talking with experts, someone that like, trust, and all of that, is you want to get things in place from a planning standpoint as early and as young as possible, right? So whether somebody has a diagnosis, I'm thinking about these things because I know from speaking to people and having relationships with folks such as you, clients that I've worked with, people that are in their 80s, 90s that I work with, the vantage point that I have and that we have to look at is we want to learn from others' mistakes, right? There are tons, and I can give you all 1,000 stories. We don't even have enough time for the stories I can share with you today. But all of that said, you want to protect against the things that could go wrong so that we can focus on and plan for all the things that will go right, right? So rule number one as it relates to insurance, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time here, but again, it is important. You've made that evident. I have an assistant, director of client relations. She was actually diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. If you know anything about juvenile diabetes, I think it's like if you get it before somewhere between 14 and 16, I don't remember exactly, but it makes you uninsurable, right? And so, for instance, you want to have term insurance and permanent insurance. I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds on that, but what I would advise for one, just in general, is you can get life insurance on your children from 2 weeks of them being born, right? And a lot of people don't know that, just the educational piece of it. So my children, we got life insurance on them when they were babies, right? And so it's the kind that they have in place for the rest of their life. And so they have a decent amount of life insurance coverage in place, but it's also a savings mechanism to it. So my children have thousands of dollars inside of their life insurance policy, right? And so no matter what happens in the future, because they have that guaranteed insurability factor locked in, they'll be able to increase the amount of life insurance, even if there's some type of diagnosis that comes up. And so that's one of the things I encourage that with all of my clients as well, and educate them on how that works, the purposes of it, why we do it. But that's the thing that we can do for our children to make sure that regardless of what happens in the future for them health-wise, that they're able to have something in place, right, for a decision that we made for them before they even started thinking about it. Now, for you, Tiffany, there will come a time, of course, if you live past that 25 years, that coverage will run out. And the thing with term is, statistically, between 1% to 3% of term policies pay out, right? If you research and look into it, there are, freak accident or health things that arise where people pass, but more often than not, people outlive their term. And so what happens is, over the 25-year period, whatever amount you pay to the insurance company stays with them, and now you're left without any coverage. And so what you want to have, ideally, whether it's, $50, $100, $150, $200,000 in permanent coverage, it's more out of pocket, but it's beneficial to look into, because the difference is if you start paying into a permanent policy even now, and say that the death benefit is $200,000 by the time you get to retirement when that term would expire. With permanent, if it's structured appropriately, you'd have at least $100,000 in cash inside of that policy. So it's more out of pocket. You may pay $50,000 for the policy over the next 25 years, but you have somewhere between 110,000 in the policy in cash. But the death benefit would be, again, at least 200 to 250. And every single year you live, you're done paying for that, and your cash continues to increase, but the death benefit continues to increase as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that we're with State Farm, and I was honest. I was nervous about telling them. I was like, hey, I got this diagnosis. what does that mean? And she was like, well, you're still safe for right now. But she suggested that I start transferring to a whole life policy. But it is more expensive. So we hadn't got to that yet.
And so that's what so last thing I'll say just about this, and I won't spend too much time at all more on this, but number one, you know, who all have you talked to as regarding your diagnosis? Because there are, it may not mean that you're totally uninsurable anymore, right? I've gotten people insured that have various types of diseases and diagnoses, right? It just depends on the insurance company. You know, that's the first and foremost thing. And then the last thing I'll say about that is permanent life insurance or whole life insurance makes very little sense to 98% of people outside of the context of a plan, right? There are people paying in $60, $70 a month for a whole life policy, people paying $3,000 to $5,000 a month for whole life or permanent policies, right? But it's in the context of a specific plan and a strategy, because the more money that you make, wealthy has realized and knows that that is a loophole. That's something else that we have not been informed or privy to information, right? So when you're putting money inside of a whole life policy, as it grows and builds over time, it's tax free, right? So if you put in $500,000 over 30 years and it grows to 1.5 million, 1 million, it's all completely tax free. And as you're taking money out of it, you don't pay any taxes on it, right? And so it's a safe way basically to build and accumulate wealth and create a tax shelter that Uncle Sam has no access to, right? But again, we could do a whole different, you know, session just on that.
Yeah, because, you know, sound like, you know, folks know how to get around the corner on some stuff that we don't know about.
I'm trying to have a seat at the table. You understand?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So,
exactly.
If we need to have a totally different session just on that, we can come
just
back
on that all together. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. So, with just different accounts with kids,
yes.
As you were stating, I have because I'm in the mortgage industry.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And being in the mortgage industry as a processor, you know, you get to see banking information, you see assets and stuff like that. So I came across the asset and I was like, why are kids' name on this? You know, I'm like, what is going on? Come to find out, they're custodial accounts that parents can set up for their children.
Yeah.
And once I found that out, I set it up for my kids. So I'm like, oh, let me look into this. And not knowing all you hear about was the 527 for the 529. 529, I'm like, okay, but this custodial account is, I can invest in stocks in the market. Like, they can be set. And once, depending on what state you're in, the child gets access to the funds at 18 or 21.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I introduced it and told some people that I know about it. They looking into it because I'm like, this is something that was not known, didn't even think of it. But once I came across it, that's something that I have definitely set up. Also with kids, bank accounts. Mm-hmm. So having savings accounts, I know Capital One has teen accounts. Mm-hmm. So when my kids get 13, I set them up with their own bank account. They have a debit card, but I teach them how to manage. You have a spending account, you have a savings account. So what do you think about those type of implementations for children?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 529 is a good option for people that are saying, hey, my kids are going to college, you know, 100%. Right. Money is after tax when you invest into that account, and you pull the money out completely tax-free. So if you put in 50 bands and it grows to 150 bands by the time the kid gets to college, then 100% of that money is completely tax-free. There are some penalties if money is not used for educational expenses, and that's what a lot of people do not like. But I get about 50% of people that are doing 529s and like that option. And then also, say your kid get a full ride, you use very little of that money, you can transfer that to a sibling or a relative, niece, nephew, etc., cousin. So that's an option as well with the 529. Again, it's 50-50. UTMA, what you're basically describing, the Uniform Transfer to Minor Act account or custodial account, it's an account, as you mentioned, that is in the child's name. The parent is just the custodian for it, and it allows you to invest money for them on their behalf. And like you said, they get, you know, full access to it. And again, I say 50% of people or so, like that option. Some don't, because by law they get money right at 21. And so if the kid is not responsible and they just take the 80 grand, 100, whatever it is, and run and blow it, then it's like that's an issue. But my thing is, if you raise your child right, you teach them, and that's even going into that intergenerational wealth, right? It does no good to leave a child $1 million and they have no knowledge of what to do with it, because it's just like them, right? And if somebody wins the lottery and have no knowledge of what to do with the money, we've seen it, time and time again, it's gone. You know what I'm saying? So we got to teach them what to do with it. It's just important as leaving the money for them, no doubt.
So what are the steps, just a general basic guideline that you say, okay, this is top priority to teach? What age are you introducing? Because I know for me, I got 13, 16, and my boys are 12. So at 14, I found out about the bank account. So I'm like, oh, at 13, I want to introduce it to my daughter. So now I kind of have a strategy, per se, because, the oldest is always a guinea pig. It's just what it is. So he has to learn. I'm learning and I'm implementing it with him, and then it'll get better and better as each child, gets involved. So what are some basic, number one, like these are 1, 2, 3 that you would kind of recommend?
Yeah, so I'll walk you through kind of, and it's, depending on the audience, the age, the person, but generally if someone is coming to me, I've got some tips, right? Step-by-step tips for anyone, right? As a baseline, right? Simple guideline, because the thing with me is, again, I come from, nearly nothing, not much. And I've gotten to a place that I'm very thankful for. And I got into the habit of reading, like I get the Wall Street Journal. You know what I'm saying? I watch CNN, CNBC, and 80% of the terminology that's used, it doesn't make sense to the average person, right? And that is intentional, right? Especially in the underserved communities, undereducated communities, it's almost like a code that's spoken to where we as wealthy people can understand, but then the majority has no clue of what's really being said. And so I make it a point, especially dealing with the minority community, I take all the terms, the financial jargon out, right? So I'm going to give you all Money Merriweather's 4 P's of financial planning, right? And we can dig into any specific aspect of this. And then we've already talked about the first one, right? First, you want to protect. And these are things I'm teaching, right, young people as well. And by the way, the age that you can start, or I advise to start teaching children, is as soon as they're able to understand the concept of what money is. And you can start with spending and saving, right? Spending, you got a certain amount of money, you want to budget or have a spending plan, because budget has become an ugly word, right, in our day-to-day. And so having a spending plan, looking at how much you make, and basically learn to work within the realm of the money that you have. And then another basic, simple concept before I hop into these, 4 P's is, if I always save money, I always have money. Right? That's a very simple concept that I came up. If I always save money, I always have money. And 2 specific books I want to recommend to you all, to listeners out there. The Richest Man in Babylon book changed my life. And the second one was The Automatic Millionaire. So The Richest Man in Babylon and The Automatic Millionaire. And it's a simple concept of keeping a portion of everything that you earn and then automating your saving, which then turns to automating your investing. And that's what we do with our 401ks, right? Automatically, without even thinking about it, the money's coming out. But we don't think about that in doing it outside of the retirement, right? Most people have the majority of their money in their 401ks because it's automated, right? So Automatic Millionaire, Rich Man in Babylon. All right, getting into the 4 P's. So protecting, right? Having sufficient life insurance in place. Type doesn't matter initially, right? Because you don't care if something happens to either of you in terms of spouse, kids, etc. You don't care what type of coverage it is. You just want to make sure that you have enough money and that you're going to be okay financially. And then secondly is protecting your income. What happens if you're not able to work for 6 months, a year, 2 years? Most of the time, we don't think about that unless something happens or unless we out. Jobs, most of the time, cover 50 to 60% of your income. Again, these are things from a basic standpoint, especially if somebody is younger and starting to work. you can teach them these concepts even. So you want to make sure that you fully protect your income, your most valuable asset. You can get up to 95 to 98% of your income replaced through a supplemental disability policy, right? We hear life insurance a lot, but when we think about like protecting our income, most people don't know. And you can do that for cost of less than 1% of your income, less than 1% of what you make, right? Supplementing. So imagine not being able to work, but you're getting 95% of your money, right, that you make when you're working, whether you're out 6 months or whether you're out 2 years or 5 years, all right? And then second, by the way, y'all can feel free to stop me or pause. I'm going through these. Secondly is prosper, right? That's the second piece. So you want to maximize your earnings. Ideally, we want to be able to invest, again, keeping a portion of everything that we earn, 20 to 70% of our income. Yes, that's possible. Now, the 70%, unless you're making a ton of money, that's a real dull, boring lifestyle that most people don't want to live. You know what I'm saying? One of my favorite sayings is the tyranny of the or versus the genius of the and, right? So that means that most of the time we think I can either save my money or I can blow my money and have fun with it. But the reality is we can do and we have to do both, right? And so a good place to start in terms of a model, and again, someone starting out working, 60, 20, 20. 60% of the money that you're making goes toward essential expenses. 20% of your income goes toward saving and investing, both short, mid, and long term. And then the last 20%, blow money, fun money, right? Do whatever you want to do with it, right? So 60, 20, 20. So ideally, that's a good place to start. 20% to 70% of your earnings. And then you got of that 20% or 50% or whatever that amount is that you're saving, you want to have a portion going toward your emergency fund. You want to have another portion going toward your short-term goals, right? You may want to buy a video game, right? You may want to get a watch or whatever it may be, right? A short-term. And then you have mid-term, right? So you have a portion of your money being invested, knowing that we want to buy a house in 2 years or 5 years. And so we save and invest for that so that we have the money to not only make a down payment, but also to furnish the house, right? And then we have long term, right, which typically is retirement. And so if you break down that 20 to 70%, those are the buckets that you want to have in mind that you're saving and investing for specific things along that time frame continuum. That makes sense?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. And then third, you want to preserve what you have, right? And so what tends to happen is the older we get, the more conservative we tend to get because you're trying to grow and invest, you know, really build your money and your assets. Get to the point where now you've got a decent amount at $500,000, million, 2 million, and the goal is not to lose it. Warren Buffett has a couple of rules. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. All right, so there's ways to invest and get to the point where you can preserve and strategically have your money positioned and invested so that it's steadily growing and you're not losing, right? There's this, have y'all heard of the FIRE movement?
Yes.
FIRE
movement. Independence. Retirement early.
Yeah, financial independence retire early. It's nothing but compound interest, right? So the goal is you sacrifice for a temporary, it's short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. As an example, you sacrifice and you're investing aggressively, right, for say 10 years, and you get to the point over that 10-year time frame, which is possible with the amount of income, double income, you know, 6-figure households now. Most of us are with, you know, both spouses, sometimes multiple 6 figures. If you get to the point where you have $1 million, right? The average return on mutual funds this past year, which is just a conglomerate of stocks that we can invest in, that's what most retirement accounts are made up of. They did roughly an average of 25 to 35%. So if you have $1 million and you get a return of 35%, that's $350,000 in 1 year, right? How many households? That's like the top percentage of income earners in the nation. Right, so if you get to that point, when you get to that point, your portfolio is generating even 10%, $100,000 in 1 year. At that point, you're essentially financially free because most people are able to live off of that, right? but you have to build up to it. Money that's gathered little by little grows, right? Increases over time. So we want to preserve what we have. And then lastly, we want to pass on, right? And I can't stress the importance of having a team. You need a CPA to help you, because when you get to a certain point, making a certain amount of money, you're having a home, investing, business, etc., you can handle a lot of that on your own. But it gets to a point of complexity where taxes are increased with the more you make. And so it's important to have a certified public accountant, CPA, to help you to reduce taxes, especially if you're a business owner. And I did a podcast. I had one yesterday, a webinar. And one of the things that we were talking about is teaching our kids, and this is what's very different, as we talked about in the beginning, our parents didn't, for the most part, most of us, our parents didn't talk to us about the struggles, the failures, the successes financially. Right. They didn't know what they didn't know. And so you can only give what you possess. And so in most cases, our parents didn't possess much, you know. They were right out of, you know, their parents or grandparents, literally like a generation or two away from slavery. And so now we have the opportunity to teach our kids. Like, we've gotten into real estate investing. We're investing in stocks. And so we're teaching our kids every step of the way, right? Struggles, failures, and the successes, so they see it all and can learn from our failures. Well, we want to make sure, again, that we're not only passing on wealth and working with attorneys to make sure that we have our will, estate plans, and all of that in place, but also passing on the knowledge. And so, again, just teaching the kids from as early on as they can grasp the concepts of saving, investing, what a stock is, so on and so forth. Make sense?
Right. Yeah, it does. And as I got older, my mom, she definitely, because she's a realtor and she's in the mortgage industry. So, like you said, what she didn't know when I was younger, she couldn't give. But as she started to gain knowledge, she started gaining wealth. Like, she good. She good. She like underwriting manager, plus she's a real estate agent. So she tapped into, plus she did accounting for years, so she tapped into that space, and now definitely soaring, succeeding, and giving us that information when we were younger that wasn't available. Like you said, the struggle, the mess ups, and like now that we're older, she's like, yeah, I didn't do this, or I failed at this, and we didn't have that, but I overcame it by doing X, Y, and Z. So that is definitely a growth that happened as I got older that I could definitely see. So I like the steps, and I could see how the steps you said, I could see how the things that I was missing younger that I wasn't taught, but also when I became an adult, those things that I did learn once she gained that knowledge. So yeah, I definitely.
One of the things that I don't think I mentioned that is really, really impactful and a big deal. Are we aware, have you all heard that you can actually start a retirement account or a Roth IRA for your children? Right, so if you're a business owner, right, you can have your children on payroll. And get this, if you have a 7, 8, 9-year-old that you can assign a duty or task and pay them, or you don't even have to own a business. They could have a lemonade stand or a vending machine or whatever the business is. And as long as they earn $6,000 in a year, you can put all $6,000 into a retirement account, a Roth IRA, which, by the way, is tax free. And so the standard deduction is $12,500, I believe, currently. And so that means if a child makes $6,000, right, standard deduction means you can deduct up to $12,500. That means there's no taxes to that. And then you can put that money into a Roth IRA, $6,000 a year max. By the time they get to retirement, just on that, if they're between 5 and 10, that $6,000 literally would be $1 million.
Yeah.
And so that's a very big thing we can do for our children.
Yeah, see,
I like that.
I like you talking about. I didn't think about CPAs and stuff like that, but I do. Like, it gets a little bit more complicated with Texas now. For example, they offered overtime for my husband's salary, and he killed them with it, and double time. And now we just found out Texas. Just to be honest, we probably, unfortunately may. Oh, but I need to learn how to, we don't know all the tax stuff that we can probably do to help us so we don't owe Uncle Sam or as much, hopefully. But yeah, definitely. And also, we're in our 30s, I'm assuming, we of course have children. And our parents are getting older just like we're getting older, but our parents are. And so for me, I know specifically I'm my dad's only child. And I have a brother, but different dads. But I just know that everything will be on me to take care if something happens. And so financially, my mind thinks of that too. I need to be prepared to be able to, step in. And I guess inevitably that time will probably come, where you got to help parents out. And then, still holding down your household. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I'm thankful that we are getting to a place now. It's a good problem to have, in that we have for the longest time with counseling is one, which over this past year, just the whole mental health of everyone being in COVID and being in financial turmoil because jobs cutting hours or layoffs, furlough, whatever the case is. But what I've seen more than anything is over the last 12 months, people are realizing that they do need to seek professional advice, right? And it's like you get to a certain point where you're not feeling well, right? You can drink you some water or watch what you eat, take some Advil or whatever the case. But if you get to the point of being so sick, you realize that I've got to seek professional help. I need to go see a doctor. I need to go into the clinic. And I think what's happening financially is a lot of people are realizing that I need to seek some professional financial help, right? And I'll give an example. Like, it's been cases in the past where I'm working with people that, they're on path to be a physician or they're on path to be an attorney, and they feel that I'm good. Like, I don't need a financial advisor, financial plan or whatever. We'll do a little something here, but I'm good. But when they get hit with that big tax bill, because now the income has jumped tremendously, I'm getting phone calls, right? Like, yeah, let's go ahead and get together, right? And so the things we're talking about is things that we're doing every day as quote unquote advisors and helping people plan. But the issue and problem is, and I'll just give you an example. In my company, right, the firm that I'm with, nationwide, African Americans make up 4% of the entire company. Out of Tennessee, we have approximately 300 and something advisors. I'm one of, I think, 7 in the entire state, right? And so we haven't had trust or people that we could go to trust that they were going to do right by us, right? And so for that reason, it didn't do any good to talk with an advisor. That was justified. But with all of that said, the issue that we have now, right, and even in the intergenerational wealth planning, that's working with parents. So most of my clients, I work with their parents in some facet. And then any client I have that has young adult children, I work with the children, educating them as well. And so we want to make sure that the parents and the kids are in good financial position. So basically what you're talking about, Tiff, is if your parents get to the point where they can't care for themselves, well, that's where long-term care comes in, right? And so there are a few solutions for that. Number one, if they are at a place where, for one, if they were in military or anything like that, that's generally taken care of by the state government. If they did a good job saving, investing, right, looking at how much they have in their 401k, how much Social Security will pay them, and then if they can't take care of themselves, what will the gap be? And that's where having, you can buy a long-term care policy that will pay out, $2,000, $4,000, $6,000 a month in the event that something happens. And what our counterparts have been doing for years is they realize, I'm the most successful. So if something happens, more than likely I'm going to have to take care of my parents. So I can either wait and take that on, and I'm owing, we're having to pay $5,000, $6,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month for care, or I could look at paying a couple of hundred, few hundred now on a monthly basis, knowing that if something happens, it's fully covered, right? And so it's planning by intent, not by default. right?
I love that. I definitely don't think we do that enough. You know, somebody passed away in the family. It's just like, yeah, how we gonna pay for the funeral? Or, you know, it's like, I thought we had time, and, you know,
and I ask people all the time, like, do you know what your parents have in place in terms of their retirement or life? Do you know if your parents have life insurance in place? Because if they don't and something happens, or it's expiring in 2-3 years, something happens to them, that's going to fall on the rest of the family. And so I'm always willing to talk to parents, because sometimes they may not want to talk specifics with the child. But like, we got to get out of that.
Stay in a child's place.
Yeah. So we've got to get to the point where each generation is not being set back because of lack of planning from the, you know, prior generation, right? But it is changing. I can say that it's changing.
That's good that it's changing. This communication, like you said, generational information, also communication. Of course, it just wasn't. We just didn't talk, and now we're talking. Now we're speaking out. Now we're the generation that's knowing it's not always good to be. The kids know what's going on. It's very important. Now, of course, things are adult things, things are children things, but when it comes to certain things, we're that generation that's definitely stepping up and giving out that information. I didn't have any other questions. I think this was, when I said this is informative, I'm going to have to go back and listen. I didn't get a chance to write my notes down, but it's going to be all right.
I didn't have my notebook by me, but I'm like, I'm going to watch the video. So
I'm going to keep watching, because for our listeners too, make sure when you all listen to our episode, have a paper and pen available. He has dropped some great nuggets, things that I didn't know. I don't know, Tiffany, she knew some stuff and didn't know some stuff. So we both like, we're going to go back and listen to this again ourselves so that we can gain some knowledge. And let our listeners know where they can contact you in your area, how they can become one of your clients, and you can advise them on moving forward towards that generational wealth.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm nationwide, baby. Nationwide. Every state. My farthest client is Cali and Virginia. So I can work with anyone wherever they are in the nation. Especially with this COVID era that we're in, most meetings, even people that I'm meeting with locally here in, you know, Nashville, Chat, Memphis, is Zoom, you know, Zoom or virtual. But I can be reached 615-691-2378. Direct line there, you can get me, and then email eric.merwether@nm.com. And then I also have, you know, website, ericmerriweather.nm.com. I'm on Facebook, Eric Merriweather business page, Instagram, Twitter. So you can find me on all social platforms. And
what's your Instagram?
Instagram, Eric. Everything is I think it's Eric Merriweather. The Eric Merriweather. _ Eric _ Merriweather. Yeah, that's it. And free consultation. So first meeting, I create financial plans for my clients. Currently, about 60% of my clients are African American, majority minority. And what I do is create financial roadmaps for people, and just a quick kind of synopsis of what that looks like. I basically have a conversation with an individual on the first meeting and find out what's important to them, where they are, because to find out where we need to get to and what's going to be the best path and route to get there, we have to see where you are. And that's simply what things you currently have in place. And then we project out if you do nothing differently based on what you currently have in place. We show you what that outcome is, short, mid, and long term. And then it's just a matter of tweaking that. And most of the time, especially with people that are making decent income, it's just a few small tweaks you can make here or there, make a tremendous difference. And then if there are any gaps in the plan, any things that are not in place, we make the recommendations to fulfill that. To create a plan where you know that no matter what happens, good or bad, you're in good position and your family's going to be taken care of. So that's what I do.
That's definitely what we want. And I don't think we told you, we do small business. We highlight a small business of the month every month. And we knew that you were coming on the show. And I didn't tell you we're highlighting you for our small business of the month to hope we get you some clients. And, you know, just wanted to let you put that in there and let you know.
Okay, well, dig that. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah, I do. I will say this, which I'm not. I'm driven by the purpose and passion of what I do. Something happened earlier this year because I've been doing this, full-time financial planning. I was in banking for 10 years and then 7 years now full-time financial planning. And I do have a goal and objective of wanting to help 100 families, so 100 clients this year. We are actually on pace to do that, believe it or not. Like I said, it's just been an influx of people, especially in the Black community, like looking for and seeking guidance. And more so, I want to create, just over the next, I'd say 10 years, like multi-millionaires, right? Over the next 5 to 10 years. And it's possible with just, again, a few small tweaks. We've got access to the knowledge and information now. And lastly, it's not about how much money you make. It's about what you do with the money that you're making.
Okay.
All right. So
we appreciate you coming on. We do want to wrap up this show by, I guess, we do our soul food, food for thought, if you will. So we're going to leave you with a little bit of food for thought. Mm-hmm. So I've been listening to a couple of different podcasts, and I was listening to Girl, I Guess, and Sarah T.D. Jakes. That's my computer. Sarah T.D. Jakes was on there, and she was saying, or they were asking her, a lot of people say they're trying to find their purpose in life. And she's like, purpose is, one of the girls, Ming, on there said, I used to just go back to school when I couldn't figure out what my purpose was, right? Just let me get a degree or something. But she's like, purpose is not something that will knock you upside the head. Everything that you do in life, if you give it purpose and do it at your best, that is purpose. It's not something that's just going to show up. So for my food for thought, it's just that simply it's never too late to search for purpose in life. So never too late to search for purpose in life.
All right, y'all. That's good. All right, y'all. We're going to wrap this show up. There's 2 things that we want you to always do when you're listening to Not Just Girl Talk. Number 1 is refill your cup.
And buy Tiffany and a shot.
And we out.